how similar are we as humans in our behavior, or how different?
You and me, or just people in general?
Us humans. It's a very broad conversation, a very broad statement, but I find myself daily, this is the way I get through life, on trying to muddle through the mess of all the people that I have to deal with based upon the choices I make on the career I have, with them not being at the same place I am from a mindset perspective.
Yeah.
Without judging them, I just go to this place. I'm like, guys, why don't you understand it? Because it's human behavior.
Yeah. I think that all people are operating on the same set of rules and boundaries, meaning we're all playing the same game on the same field.
I don't think I am.
Well,
I think I'm playing the same sport. I'm just on a different field.
Yeah, but for the
sake of this,
let me set this up. We're all playing on the same field with the same set of rules in the context of we're all seeking gratification, positive affirmation, and we're pursuing things that we think will give us that. Like, we want to feel good. Okay? Yeah. I feel good by doing a ton of hard work and accomplishing something. I feel good when I give somebody a nugget and I see a light bulb off. A drug addict feels good when they take a hit. Someone feels good when they buy something with money they stole. Right? We're all operating on the same
dopamine hits.
Yeah, we're talking broad human behavior. Everything you and I are doing, and everything a drug addict or a criminal is doing, we're all doing for the same biological human reasons. We're all after the same thing. Everything else is a mental thing. So human behavior, yes, is a mindset, but at the end of the day, we're all seeking the gratification. There's biological things that play into that mindset as well. And I don't care how strong your mind is, there's biological things that will outdo any of the strongest mindsets, which is why it needs to become a habit, and you have to reprogram. I don't need that thing, even though I know it feels good to accomplish or to do or to have but I can't do that very often or at all. But this thing over here, it may not feel quite as good to have or do or accomplish, but I can do that all the time. And then all of a sudden, I'll take a level 7 every day versus a level 10 once a month.
So what does Phil Treadwell feel is worthwhile gratification?
I think it was just that. I'm wired. I want to learn. That's why I like to travel. My wife and I say every time we go somewhere really cool, man, we're going to come back here. We never do. We always go somewhere new. I can walk whenever we do travel, like at cities. Some people are like, you let your wife go shopping? Da, 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 da. Yes, I do, and here's why. I take to, like, one of my favorite places to do this is in Nordstrom in Chicago. Maybe it's Macy's in Chicago. Maybe both.
I think it's Nordstrom.
There's a big bar in the middle of it, right next to the men's floor. And I go sit there and just start conversations with some of the other dudes that are waiting, like their wives are shopping or whatever. Or I'll let my wife get a whole bunch of clothes, and I'll go to the dressing room because they're always like big like seating areas. And you start talking to people and find out who's tourists, who's locals. Well, if they're local, okay, where's the cool place to eat? Where's like the cool things? Like, I want to learn. I want to experience. There's a huge rock, and I want to know about as much of it as possible. That's not everyone. That's me. I get dopamine hits from learning something new. I get dopamine hits in seeing other people learn something from things that I've learned. Most of my stuff is not original thoughts. Most meaning high 90 percentile. This is stuff that I've learned from other people, other places, and I regurgitate it my own way. Right? Our mutual friend Kyle Draper talks about that book. I can't remember the name off the top of my head.
Steal
Like an Artist.
Yep.
Yeah. People don't care that someone else said it because they really care what you think about it. I try to give credit on things that someone else taught me, especially if I'm going to use it verbatim, because someone else
impacted you.
100%.
Yeah.
I want to give credit on that. But I want to learn. I want to grow. I want to do. My dopamine hits come from progressing. So business is an easy outlet for that because the metrics on whether you're making progress or not are very easy to see. I got a few more followers this month on social. I got a few more, downloads on a podcast. I made a little more money this month. I sold the metrics are everywhere for you to get that dopamine hit, but the metrics don't lie, right?
So you touched on business. That's what brought us together.
Yeah.
What's the purpose in your business for you? Like, where do we find it here?
So my purpose ties to my why. And if anybody's read Simon Sinek's Start With Why, we know that a why comes from your past. My why in mortgage and real estate is to move our industry to a more modern and relevant era. The unpacking that why is, even as I had success in the industry, it was driven by people that were the old white hairs at the top that decided what was relevant, what we were going to do, what direction the industry was going. And when I had success and got in rooms with those people, I was still kind of patted on the head. Like, yeah, it's a good idea, but, as a regional manager for the company I was working with, I was one of the most profitable regions we had. But because I was 10 years younger than anyone else in the room, I wasn't given the time of day. I wasn't given any relevance. And they made me feel like I needed to be someone different to be accepted by them when I knew that their ideas were dying ideas. So I'm passionate about moving it forward. But that feeling goes back further because in my prior marriage, I felt like I needed to be different people in different facets. That was kind of, I don't want to say what she required, but that's how I felt, was I need to be this person here and that person here and whatever else. And again, I got married young, had kids young, and went into a relationship like that in hindsight, that's not who I am now. Most people that know me, whether we're having a podcast, whether we're drinking a beer, whether we're in a game, I'm pretty much me everywhere. I may show up a little bit differently, but it's very important to me to be the same person through all these different things. That is part of going back one step further, being in 6th or 7th grade. And my best friend at the time was having a birthday. And he'd said a couple weeks before that he was going to have 3 or 4 kids over, and they were going to do spend the night at his house. He lived on a cool, few acres and had some cool stuff to do. So the Monday before the Friday that I knew was going to be kind of his birthday celebration, I said, hey, I need to tell my mom, what's going on? What's the plan? And he proceeds to tell me that I wasn't invited. And so my best friend, who I considered to be my best friend at the time, I wasn't even in his top 4 because he had 4 other dudes going over there. And that's where I learned, okay, I need to be what other people want me to be to get accepted and play their game. And then that carried over into a toxic marriage. And so then when I got past that point and had success in business and got in rooms where people exhibited those same characteristics of, you need to do what we think is valuable, who we want you to be, to have influence and success and move this industry forward, it then became a passion project and a why, because I looked back at that 6th grade, 7th grade kid that was devastated and still begged his mom for $5, $10, $20, whatever, to put into a card to give him a birthday present when I wasn't even on his radar as far as closest friends. And again, there can be all kinds of things to unpack, but bottom line, those past experiences influence my why of, I want to show up as me. I want to impact and influence people positively to build the business that's more modern and relevant, because let's be honest, no matter how far mortgage and real estate has come in the last couple of years, which is our chosen industry, it's nowhere near so many other verticals of where it needs to be for the type of consumer experience that people really want.
And deserve.
That's exactly right.
So the way our minds operate, we believe it's important to have goals, to have visions for our lives, to have a plan. There's books out there by really successful people about how many steps ahead you should think. There's the Grant Cardones of the 10Xs. People who have achieved really big things, success or not, and significant or not, that's my word, but they've just achieved things that we all look at, and we're like, wow, kudos, man. Like, good job. How important is it for you, do you believe? How far ahead should you look?
It goes back to that. It depends on where you're at in the journey. If you're at the very beginning of the journey, you may not even start hitting the checkpoints if you think you have to climb Mount Everest. So for some people, it's just go to the first checkpoint. When you get to the first checkpoint, you can make the decision if you need to go to the second checkpoint. Once you're at the first, just go ahead and go on to the second. Once you've hit some checkpoints and you've made the decision and you're moving forward, then you can start creating the strategy of how high up Everest you need to look through the checkpoints. For most people, you just need to get started and stop looking too far ahead. Once you've started taking action, right? It was a similar conversation that we had before we came up here. You had a young realtor who is making cold calls, doing some door knocking. The advice that I gave him was do the exact same thing for 50, 60, 70, 80, 100 doors. Do it the exact same way with the exact same words, and then find the commonalities. Most people haven't done enough work before they start trying to create some type of a strategy. Go do something, and then you can start strategizing. At this phase, I still take some of my own advice. I'm not putting out content at scale. I don't care if I'm putting out more than an average person or average mortgage loan officer or whatever. I'm trying to level up to a high level before I start being too strategic. So I think there's a difference between looking down the road and trying to craft that versus I know that I have the ability and the desire to become a Gary Vee or become an Ed Milet or whatever. And that's not arrogance that I'm the same level as him. I'm not at all. I'm saying if my why is big enough and I stay consistent as long as they have, I have the opportunity to do that. That's my belief. So yes, that's out there. And you find the things that you can lean into the same way Gary Vee has, I want to buy the Jets. If he wanted to buy the Jets right now, he could buy the Jets.
He could put the people together to do it.
He has that thing out there, right? Macro patience, micro speed to steal directly from him. That's kind of how I want to answer that question, I think. I have a huge vision of the type of business, organization, community, personality that I can build, but I'm very, very patient in that. It's the short-term checkpoints. Man, I want to blast this out as quickly as possible. I want to take action on a ready, fire, aim scale because, again, came full circle. You can't better something that you've never done. It's analysis paralysis, whatever you want to call it.
So how do you believe – so the easy way forward in my life as I reflect and I try to unpack this person I am today, and I don't get too caught up on it because I have this idea in my mind that I seem to be better tomorrow. Just tomorrow. Just a little bit better. How much? I don't know. Just better.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Mark, what's that mean? I don't even know what it means. I just know that when I get to the end of today, whatever time it ends, could be one of those 20-hour days, 18-hour days, I just know tomorrow. And as I do self-reflection, I'm like, how do you do it? It's like, okay, well, I've already learned what I learned today.
Yeah.
So when I wake up tomorrow, I already know what I knew.
Yep.
Just build a little bit. Do what? I don't know. Have another conversation. Go a little further. Go back to that person that maybe you didn't make that complete impact with and try to round it out. Try to close the loop, right? I don't know why I think that way, but I think it's the key to my success.
It is.
But I have these huge goals. I've got Mount Everest.
Yeah.
I have it, and I know it's there.
Yeah.
Like, I actually know, I don't know if it's 30 months or 36 or 40 months or 48, but it's somewhere within the next 5 years. Then I'm going to pick up the phone and say, hey, Phil, I'm coming to Dallas on my plane. Hey, man, like, that's just one stop because I'm going to go to Tampa.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing for the day? You want to ride and talk for a couple hours?
Yes.
Right? Now, I'm not going to bring you back. We're going to have to get Southwest back for you. But after that, I'm going to Nashville. And after that, I'm going to come back home.
Yeah.
And so, but I have zero problem in knowing that tomorrow I just got to grind a little more.
Right. So here's the thing, though. It is accurate and true. I mean, there's books written about it. There's The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy.
It's awesome.
There's The Slight Edge, which is, I think, Gary Paulson. It's a similar book. The premise of The Slight Edge, much like Compound Effect, is there is no flat. You're either going up or you're going down. So to your point of, I'm going to approach every day and get 1% better. That's why 90-day programs work. Because if people stay focused for 90 days, they're almost 100% different than they were when they began. But after 30 days, which is really how most people last, there's enough difference where they see results. You can't notice 1% different, but you can notice 30% different or 90% different. Where most people fail is they don't let enough of the 1% or the little bit better one conversations stack up long enough. So to your point, if you look at real science and real mathematics and you look at, bell curves and standard deviations and all the stuff, there's a hockey puck, right? Or the hockey stick. There's so much time that's flat before you just go straight up. 6 feet from gold. We can use all these analogies, right? But the bottom line is success is about consistent and persistent effort over time. We count the cost too much. Downstairs earlier, I had a realtor after I talked said, you said you had like some stats and some analytics about the engagement that you guys were doing. I said, yeah. She said, well, I was just curious, like how much? How much did you engage? I knew what she was looking for. What price am I really going to have to pay? And here's what I told her. I said, each of our social media profiles on each of the platforms, we typically would do 5 in the horizontal feed because those stories end up in the DMs, and 5 in the vertical feed, which is just comments. But I have 3 or 4 pages that I would do that with on Instagram, 3 or 4 pages I would do that on Facebook, 3 or 4 pages on LinkedIn, on and on and on. So it turned into a ton of engagement. I said, here's the deal. Pick a platform and do 5 or 10 comments and 5 or 10 stories. And she just kind of looked at me. I said, because here's the thing. It's not about those 5 or 10 comments today. It's about 5 or 10 comments every single day. And she kind of looked at me, kind of nodded like, okay, I get it, meaning he's not going to tell me what the cost is. And I'm not saying this in a negative way. I'm saying this is an insight into exactly what we're talking about. People understand I'm going to be a little bit better today. I'm going to work hard and be a little bit better today. What happens when you wake up and feel like shit? What happens when you wake up and your significant other is a complete and utter asshole to you? What happens when the day is stacked end to end and you don't have any time for yourself and all you want to do is be pissed off? What happens when you wake up and you're sick?
You fucking get up and go to work. That's what you do.
That's right. It doesn't. That's the thing. People count the cost. It's not about 5 comments, 10 comments. It's not about 1% better. It's about doing it every day, whether you want to or not, and not saying how many more days do I have to do it. You do it every single day until you don't have to do it anymore. Well, when's that going to be? When you get there, you'll know. If you're asking the question, you're not there yet. That's the bottom line.